You grew up watching a hero who was already dead, and American television made sure you never found out. For anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s, Voltron is unforgettable. 5 lions, 5 pilots. But hidden in the original version, there was a much darker story, where these pilots weren't explorers. They were among the last human beings alive. In 1981, 3 years before any American kid had ever heard of Voltron, Japanese audiences were watching something completely different. It was called Hyakuju o GoLion, Beast King GoLion. It premiered on Tokyo Channel 12 on March 4th of that year. 52 episodes, a complete story, with a beginning, a middle, and an ending that American television never let you see. The animated series told us the basics. 5 cadets from the Galaxy Alliance defending the universe against King Zarkon. Clean, simple, safe. But GoLion wasn't a children's adventure. It was a post-apocalyptic war story, and it opened with the worst possible news. The year was 1999. The 5 pilots had just returned from a deep space mission. They were heading home. But when they reached the coordinates where Earth was supposed to be, there was nothing. No blue oceans, no green continents, no cities, no signs of life. Earth had been destroyed. While they were gone, humanity had started a third world war. Nuclear missiles were launched from every direction, and when the war ended, there was nothing left to save. These 5 pilots weren't heroes coming home. They were among the last human beings left, drifting through the wreckage of everything they had ever known. But the story didn't stop there. Shortly after discovering what remained of Earth, the pilots were captured. A Galra Empire slave ship intercepted them in deep space and brought them to the slave castle on planet Galra, not as prisoners of war, as property, exotic humans from a destroyed planet, put on display as trophies in a world that didn't see them as people. And it was there that the story of one of them took a turn no American kid ever got to see. When World Events Productions bought the rights to GoLion and began adapting it for American syndication in 1984, they were operating in a very specific television climate. Organized parent groups had been pressuring networks and distributors for years to reduce violence in children's programming. The market had developed an unspoken rule. If you wanted to sell toys to American kids, you needed a show that no parent could object to. And GoLion, in its original form, was nowhere close to that. The nuclear destruction of Earth was cut. The pilots became generic explorers with no tragic backstory. The tone of war was replaced by episodic adventure. Deaths were rewritten as injuries. Tragedies became temporary setbacks, but none of those changes would be as significant or as personal as what they did to one specific character. His name was Sven. In the American version, Sven was the 5th pilot, the quiet Scandinavian, the one who seemed different from the others, thoughtful, calculated. He flew the Blue Lion with a precision the others didn't have. And then, midway through the first season, he was seriously wounded in battle and sent to a space hospital to recover. The show moved on. Sven would be back later. He was fine. Everything was fine. In GoLion, none of that happened. His name was Takashi Shirogane, and in episode 6, he died. Not off-screen, not between episodes, with a throwaway line of explanation in the next one. The audience watched it happen in real time. Takashi faced the witch Honerva alone in a corridor of the slave castle. Honerva's cat, Jaga, leaped and bit Shirogane's ear. He cried out, and then a roe-beast, a war creature forged from the Galra Empire's own hatred, struck him down and left him unable to defend himself. Keith arrived too late, and Takashi Shirogane died in Keith's arms. On the surface, a space explorer wounded in battle. Underneath, a warrior whose story ended in episode 6, right in front of every kid who was watching. And after he died, GoLion kept going. Because in GoLion, when someone died, the story didn't pause to wait. It just moved on. And that's when the second part of this story begins. The part almost nobody knows about today. After Takashi died, the Blue Lion needed a new pilot. A few episodes later, among the captives on planet Galra, the pilots found a young man. Not as a warrior, not as an ally, as a slave. His name was Ryu Shirogane, Takashi's younger brother. After Earth was destroyed, Ryu had been captured by the Galra Empire and taken to the same slave slave castle where the pilots had been held. While the 5 of them managed to escape and find the lions, Ryu was left behind, forced into servitude on an alien world, carrying the weight of being the last Shirogane still alive. When the GoLion pilots found him and set him free, he didn't hesitate. He took his brother's place in the Blue Lion, not as a replacement, as a continuation, carrying forward what Takashi had left unfinished. In the American version, this was explained with a single line. Sven had recovered. Sven was back. The audience never had to ask why something about him seemed different, why there was something in his eyes that had changed. They just accepted it, because the show had always taught them not to look too closely. But GoLion kept going, and the story of the Shirogane brothers needed an ending. In episode 52, the series finale, the war against the Galra Empire reached its conclusion. The team had fought for planets that no longer existed, for teammates who had fallen before them, and Ryu Shirogane, the brother who survived slavery, who crossed the stars to honor a dead brother, who fought in the name of a humanity that barely existed anymore, faced Prince Syncline in single combat. Yu ran Syncline through with his blade. Syncline cut him across the chest, and they both fell. The last Shirogane and the last of the Galra royal line, falling into the dark together. The war not ending in a clean triumph, but in mutual destruction. 2 men who had lost everything, taking each other into the void. That was the end of GoLion. In Voltron, Sven was fine. What's incomprehensible about all of this is the following. The show you watched every afternoon, Monday through Friday, after school, the one that felt simple and safe and endless, was built on top of a story about the end of the world. The 5 pilots you rooted for were orphans of a dead planet. The villain they faced had enslaved the last human beings in the universe, and the teammate you thought had been hurt and sent off to recover had actually died in his best friend's arms in episode 6. His younger brother took his place, fought until the very end, and fell in the final battle of the series. World Events Productions made a business decision in 1984. They decided that the American market wasn't ready for a post-apocalyptic war tragedy airing at 3 in the afternoon. And they were probably right. But hidden inside the original GoLion, there was something far more complicated. A story about grief and survival, and what it costs to keep fighting when everything you ever loved is already gone. A story that never reached American kids, because someone decided, long before the tapes were dubbed, that you couldn't handle the truth. And now you know. If this video made you see a show you thought you already knew in a completely different light, share it with someone who grew up watching Voltron. And if you want to know the dark origin of another classic that television kept hidden from you, subscribe to the channel. Because the next video is about a character who seemed harmless, but had a deeply disturbing past. See you then.